Welcome once again to Cinemaholics Major Motion Podcast, where we talk about the biggest and best films coming to theaters and streaming online on Halloween. That's right, because we are recording this, of course, on All Hallows 31, right? Because All Hallows Eve is the 30th, so I almost messed that up. Right? Do I have that right?
It's Halloween.
It's Halloween. Welcome to Halloween.
Welcome
this
to
is Halloween.
This is Halloween. I wanted to do something. I'm Will, by the way. You didn't introduce me.
I'm about to, but you jumped in.
Okay, go ahead.
You did a cannonball while I'm just still, testing the waters. No, go ahead. You already took the reins. Let's see where the ship goes.
All right. I'm a writer for Collider, and I'm the co-host of Cinemaholics. I'm Will Ashton. Hey. How you doing?
Wait, where are you from? You didn't say where you're from.
I'm from Pittsburgh.
Lost.
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
I'm just so excited about Halloween.
What were you going to say, though? Yeah, it's Halloween.
I was going to say I wanted to talk about some spooky stuff this weekend.
We're talking about Decision to Leave. How spooky does it get from there? From San Francisco, I'm John Negroni, film editor for the Young Folks.
Oh boy. It is Halloween. I guess by the time this episode comes out, it will probably be after Halloween. But it's Halloween weekend. I thought, hey, maybe we could watch Wendell and Wild. Maybe we could watch. I think Pray for the Devil came out this weekend. Maybe
it's terrible.
We could watch Terrifier 2, something horror related. And you're like, no. Why don't we watch Till? And I'm like, well, that's scary for different reasons.
That's
but
not the first thing. I said Tar. I was like, Tar would make sense because It's been out, but it just hasn't hit your area yet, apparently.
It just came this weekend. Yeah, it's in kind of limited release around me. Same with Till. So, yeah.
And I'd be thankful. There was The Good Nurse, which hit Netflix, and I saw that. I thought it was okay. But I didn't think that would be like the most fun discussion, honestly.
I really don't know what that movie is. I know Eddie Redmayne's in it, I believe.
Redmayne and Jessica Chastain. Yeah. It's based on a true story or something. It's just kind of like, it's kind of like a TV movie sort of thing. It's very TV movie, but like in an okay way. Like it's nothing bad. It was one of those movies where I texted my mom after. And I was like, hey, did you see The Good Nurse? Because I knew she would like it. And she's like, yes, I loved it. And I was like, okay. So I know who this audience is.
That's very
Wendell
sweet.
and Wild I do want to see.
It's good. I watched it yesterday. It's a good film.
Yeah.
Henry Selick's first film in, is that 12 years? 2009? Yeah. So I guess maybe it's 14 years.
Animated, right? So this could be like an animated Oscar win or nomination.
Potentially, yeah. It's a Monkey Paw
Turning Red will win.
Productions. It could, I mean...
I think Turning Red is the shoe-in.
I was going to say, is that the front runner at this point?
It's got to be. I mean, it's Pixar. It's an original. It was successful. It's thought-provoking. Critics love it. Yeah, I don't...
people love the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio so far. It premiered at the, I think, London Film Festival, and it's getting some of the best reviews of his career.
I guess that's the only real competition then, huh? Because we don't have a lot of like Disney animated. But anyway, we'll talk about Oscar stuff later.
I mean,
in the season.
I mean, because it seems like Netflix definitely has a lot of animated stuff, which could be fascinating if like Netflix beats Disney. But that's like a discussion for Oscar talk.
Right. There are a few others that might sneak in there, like Bad Guys and all that. But yeah, there's just not there's not a Mitchells versus the Machines or a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse this year. That's really shaking up the race at this point that I'm aware of, at least.
What's up with the Bad Guys is still playing in theaters near me. What's up with that?
Well, it's getting its Oscar push. I got some Bad Guys gift box mail stuff for award season, so it's that time of year. But the movie that I want to talk about the most, even more than Tar, is The Banshees of Inisherin, and I'm just waiting patiently every week if when am I going to get that text message from Will saying he is seated and his popcorn is in his hands for Banshees of Inisherin. That's all I care about.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe so, yeah.
I've been calling it Inisherin or something. I don't actually know.
I believe so. I mean, that's what I remember. But lots of movies coming out these days. Not a lot of like big movies. There's Black Adam last week, but wasn't the biggest box office earner. Did okay. But there have been, some splashy releases, but it is award season at this point. Like we're like kind of full swing in it. We're getting all kinds of like limited releases. We're trying to figure out what to cover. There are some movies that we're like, maybe this will be a big thing, like My Policeman. But then, that kind of hit with a thud. And then Causeway, the new Jennifer Lawrence, I was kind of I wasn't sure if that was going to be kind of big and splashy, but now I'm being told like, no, this is a big player. It's a Causeway movie. I missed my screening, which is unfortunate, but
I mean,
we'll be catching lots of stuff. We got like After Sun. We both want to check out soon. I think we're both going to be seeing Armageddon time this week. There's lots to get to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, and I am really excited to see Tar. It's not a matter of it was just I didn't have the chance to see it this weekend. The timings that the showings wouldn't match what our availabilities would be. But I did get to see Triangle of Sadness. Surprisingly, I was able to see that. You're not too familiar with it, though. Surprisingly, I think
I'm familiar with it. I've seen some of the advertising, not the trailer, but
okay.
I've seen that poster where they're like they're on like the beach chairs or something. I'm not aware that much of what it's about.
Well, it won the Palme d'Or at this year's Cannes Film Festival, your absolute favorite film festival, which you follow intently and love. I'm joking for the listeners because John seems to think that it's kind of snobby over at the Cannes Film Festival.
Cannes just not my favorite. I've never been, but you know, I don't know. This movie we're talking about today, Decision to Leave. That was a Cannes. Yeah, that was he won Park Chan-wook won Best Director, didn't he?
Best Director, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
that is correct. And I saw a trailer.
I keep up with some of it.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for Broker, which I believe won Best Actor at that festival. If I'm not mistaken, another Neon release that comes out sometime this year. We'll
see. I don't know actually for sure. But no, I'm very excited for you to watch Tar because it's one of my favorite movies of the year so far.
Probably will be my favorite.
Yeah, I didn't need to rhyme that. I think I don't know exactly what we'll be talking about next week because I have so many release dates in my head at the moment. I know that I'm watching Wakanda Forever next week, but it's going to be the week after, I think, is when it actually comes out. I don't remember. But we'll probably do a couple more like smaller films next week, maybe. Maybe Tar is next week. I could only hope. Banshees of Inisherin and a Tar double feature review. That would just be my dream.
Well, it would be a triple, right? If we did that with Armageddon time.
Yeah, if we did Armageddon time too. There you go. So, you know, I don't want to make any promises. You know how it is. Like things can change. I actually do have a wedding this weekend, Will. So, you know, I got to watch all my movies this week. Like I can't put them off until Saturday. I won't be around.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I imagine I'll probably get around to seeing either Banshees or Tar on Sunday. Maybe both. I don't know.
Oh, you know what else just came out on Netflix? I still haven't seen it, but I had a screener for it and everything, and I just never got to it. All Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I totally forgot about that one. So the movies are just flying at us.
Yeah, no, yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like there's no like big moment happening. There's not like a movie that one singular movie everybody's talking about.
I don't know, man. Weird to me. I feel like my timeline is definitely, as the some of the Gen Z crowd has been saying, tar-pilled. I've been seeing a lot of conversations.
I'm not seeing anything about Tar. I'm seeing everything. Everything I'm seeing is Cabinet of Curiosities.
I haven't really seen much of anything about that. I am kind of curious about it. Obviously, it's Guillermo del Toro, but
he's having a year.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really heard that one shaking up my timelines much.
That's unfortunate because it seems really cool to me. It seems cooler to me than the typical thing I see on the Twitter.
I'm sure it's cool. I'm just saying it. It's not moving the needle much around the folks that I follow. They're too busy talking about Tar.
The people you follow, I'll never understand them. That's okay. There's also the new Weird Al movie, which that's going to be coming out pretty soon, right?
If not next week, the week after, I believe, right?
I can't keep up. You know, there's too much stuff, but we'll try to see what we can. In the meantime, you know, it is spooky season, which means we need to talk about something more horrifying than anything else. And that's Will and I arguing about something that doesn't have to do with movies. That is scary. Like that keeps me up at night. And this is the third installment, you guessed it, of the Pizza Wars. Pizza Wars Part 3. World Pizza War. There it is. 3. And we asked you listeners last week because Will and I have been arguing about Domino's and Pizza Hut. I think Domino's is better. Will doesn't just think that Pizza Hut's better. He thinks that Domino's is like bottom of every, list that should exist. And I like Domino's and then Pizza Hut. I'm just, I like both.
I don't know if I put it at bottom of every list. I mean, pizza is still pizza, but I mean, I just find it baffling that you think that Pizza Hut is significantly worse than Domino's.
Well, you know what? we've said our piece, our slice on it, haven't we? Last week we asked the listeners, this is your chance to shine. Tell us your pizza taste. So we asked you to leave voicemails on the Swell app, which is where our account can collect your audio, and so we could play it on the show. And sure enough, we got some voicemails, and we edited them a bit to try to keep it, because people sent long stuff, like 4 or 5 minute voicemails, because they had stories to tell. So we'll do our best to distill down what people said. But here are the voicemails we got. And Will, this is your first time hearing them. Now, I told you what these voicemails were about because I listened to them, but you didn't actually get to hear them from the listeners. So, and also as we play these, people didn't leave their names. Please do that. We want to know your name. You don't have to give us like personal information beyond that, but I would like to know like your name and where you're from and stuff. But people just they just jumped in. They're just like, here we go, pizza war time. So, all right, Will, you ready? All right, let's grab. You want to order some pizza while we do this? Okay. Anyway,
we might need to, considering how long these might go on, but we'll see. Yeah.
Let's just go for it. Okay, so here's the first voicemail.
I love pizza. I love pizza. Although you did not mention my favorite pizza chain, I'm still going to answer this question. Pizza Hut over Domino's. All day, every day. If I had to put them in order, it would be Little Caesar, Domino's, Pizza Hut, then the other one that I'm not going to mention because it wasn't brought up. But I love pizza.
So I got to admit, when I first heard that, I thought she was saying that Little Caesars was her favorite. But no, she was going from the bottom of the list. Now she's here. Yeah. And we talked about that a little bit, didn't we, Will, about our favorite like regional chains? Huh?
We talked about it a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
But it took me a moment too where I did have one friend who put Little Caesars at number one. And
you're not friends anymore, right?
No, I mean, we're friends, but it surprised me.
It's strayed. It's a little bit like things have been a little weird between you two. Just to reiterate, because I know we said it, but just in case people haven't heard, we're not saying, neither of us are saying Domino's or Pizza Hut are the best, like far and away. Like they're just like of the chains.
I mean, I think that just kind of sums up how asinine this whole thing is that
right.
We don't even we're not even proud defenders of any of these pizza chains. We're just basically arguing almost in a way the best, the worst in some respects.
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't say that. There are some pizza in like the Bay Area that is like horrifically bad.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. Yeah, you're saying that some pizza places in the Bay Area, it's not a pizza haven, this Bay Area.
Embarrassing stuff. The pro tip, if you're ever in the Bay Area, really maybe California at large, your best bet for pizza, if you want something that's kind of like local, but you don't want like a big chain thing, is to get halal pizza, because they know what they're doing. Like the pizza like at a shawarma place that's where it is. But otherwise, if you try to go to like these places that are just sort of like pretending to be like New York slices, no, don't do it. Anyway, that's just my opinion.
Pro tip.
Here's the next voicemail. Yeah.
If I had to rank the 4 national chains that you mentioned, I would put Domino's as a slight number 1 over Pizza Hut number 2, and I would not rank either Little Caesars or Papa John's. I simply just do not care for either one of those pizzas. And in selecting Domino's number 1, I do have to mention that they did go through a major recipe change in the 2010-ish time frame, about 10 to 12 years ago. And I actually preferred Domino's before that change. I can't really explain why, but I did like the pizza before a little bit more than I do after. And I'm curious, the people that also select Domino's, did you notice a difference when they actually made that menu change for the better or worse? Now with Pizza Hut, I always like the idea of Pizza Hut more than actual consuming it. I find it to be very salty. And I actually looked it up, and the sodium content on a pan pizza is absolutely a little ridiculous. So it makes sense. But after eating Pizza Hut, I like it. I like the taste of it. It just never agrees with me. It is salty. I always feel bloated after that, and my gut just seems to be in a bomb situation after that. It's just this gut bomb. And that's the main reason I would rank Domino's over Pizza Hut, but it's nothing. That gut bomb is nothing absolutely nothing compared to the bomb that I get when I eat Papa John's.
Yeah, this listener, stealing my heart over here.
Okay.
Couldn't agree more with all that.
All right. Well, I do appreciate that they went pretty in depth. Like they weren't just, they're on caution to win and just saying blasphemous things. They're like, oh, they have my, my personal beliefs and this is why X, Y, Z. I can respect that. Well
argued. Well, and then certainly like, spoken like somebody who went to culinary school, apparently.
Right.
Yeah, but no, it's just, that's just like right where I'm at. It's like something about that crust. Actually, this next one, so we have one for Domino's, one for Pizza Hut. This next one is we're going to get even more sort of commentary on the differences. Here we go.
I have to go Domino's on this one. I think that menu change way back when did them a lot of favors. I have been told lately that Papa John's is actually kind of having I don't know if we want to call it like a renaissance of some kind, but they're definitely better than they used to be. And then Pizza Hut, I don't know, there's something about the crust. It's like kind of fried, isn't it? I'd be curious to know like what the actual difference is between, that crust and the crust of their major competitor, Domino's. But it certainly feels like it's fried. I don't know, just a little too greasy. Every time I've had Pizza Hut in like the last 10, 15 years, I remember thinking to myself, this feels like something made in a lab, and I don't really have that reaction when I have Domino's. Although if I'm being honest, there's plenty of local pizza places near me that I prefer over all of those options.
All right. Well, what do you think? Pizza Hut crust, is it fried? I kind of get what he's saying there, but it's like crispy, and that's my issue. Is that it's just too greasy for me? But I get why other people like it.
I don't really get. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't get this one because I feel like every time I've had Pizza Hut crust, it's very chewy. It's like very soft. That's what I like about it. It's like also pretty thick, and I feel like the crust they get at Domino's is very thin. It's like I have to like kind of like chew into it, and I think
really that's completely opposite. For me, it's like crispy on the outside and chewy on the inside, which is just right. Which Pizza Hut's not, Pizza Hut to me is only crunchy.
Get Domino's again because it's been at least a few months since I've had it, and I'm not going to say I'm like an in-depth expert on Domino's, but I will say that just from my experience, there's been very few times where I've walked away from Domino's feeling content or satisfied with my pizza experience. Maybe that'll change after all these wars. Maybe this will be a moment of truth between us. But
the chains are listening to us now and adjusting their recipes as we speak, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have one last, and I'll be honest, we got 4 voicemails, 2 for Domino's, 2 for Pizza Hut. Like, spoiler alert there. Now, this last one, in fitting fashion, it's tied, but this last one is very long, and he literally starts it. I'm only playing part of it. He starts it by saying this is going to require a story, and he tells this very long and kind of honestly gross story about how he got food poisoning from Domino's. I'm not going to play all of it because genuinely, like, he does the sound effects too, and I was like, I want to hear this. I
want to hear these sound effects. I mean, I need it. Yeah.
Well, you'll hear the last part of the voicemail, which is the summation of the story. But in essence, he had a Domino's experience where he ate it, he had some soda with it, it was really good, but then he got really, really sick. So he liked it, but now, the food poisoning has soured, all mention of Domino's. Here's the voicemail.
Ever again will I eat Domino's. I can't, no. I was so scarred. By the time I got done throwing up, I finally... They had to call in a replacement. I got sent home. I looked like a ghost. I literally thought I was going to die. It was the worst. I mean, that's the only time I've ever experienced food poisoning. One time in my entire life. And it was because of Domino's. So the fact that you're even asking this question proves that you're evil, because I don't ever want to talk about this again. I've gone to counseling for years now trying to get over it, but I can't. Okay, maybe that's a little bit of hyperbole as well. You get the idea. Domino's is bad. It's evil. Don't eat it. Run for your lives. Okay, because, well, that's what happened to me. So Pizza Hut every day, anytime, but never Domino's again.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody who left a voicemail. That listener in particular for just bearing your soul to us like that.
Yeah, no, I think he was on the money there. I think he calling you evil and talking about
exactly
the horrors of
for.
Domino's. Yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah. Save the best for last, right? I knew we had to end it on that note. So I think this will be the last we talk about pizza for a bit. I think this has hopefully settled the score.
Well, even if we get more voicemails, you're not going to play them?
That's the thing. If people want to leave, if you're hearing these voicemails and you're like, you know what, I got to get in on this, give me a piece of that pie. Check us out. We have an account on the Swell app. That's where you can find our latest question, which is Domino's or Pizza Hut. And so you can leave your voicemail there.
I think it would be so funny if we tied it into reviews. Like they offer very thoughtful, articulate response on Tar. It's like, okay. And then when it comes to Domino's and Pizza Hut, I have to say,
well, no, it's sort of like when we're talking about decision to leave, it's like, if he really wanted to impress her, forget premium sushi. He should have gotten her,
personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut.
Yeah, with extra toppings, obviously. That's when the romance is sizzling. Reminds me of the K-drama that John Oliver did a few jokes on once about Subway. I don't know if you ever saw that episode of Last Week Tonight.
I did not.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Anyway, I think that'll do it for the long opening for the show, but let's get into our feature review here. Let's talk about Decision to Leave, the 11th feature film from director and writer Park Chan-wook, the South Korean filmmaker whose previous film, The Handmaiden, was a personal favorite of mine back in 2016. But he's also, you're a fan too?
I was, yeah. I was trying to remember if we had talked about it. I know it was before we started the podcast, but I couldn't remember if we had talked about it on Now Conspiring or if we even had a conversation about it off the air.
I vaguely remember talking about it with you during award season. So in the lead up to Cinemaholics, when we first started the show, I think we were talking about movies that we wish were getting more attention. And I know for sure Handmaiden was one of mine.
Yeah. Good movie. Yeah. I mean,
very good movie.
It's so fascinating to me that this is coming after that one in terms of
of his films.
Yeah.
Because so Park Chan-wook, we should say, he's well known for the Vengeance trilogy, probably most notably Oldboy. That's one of his all-timers. But also Stoker. A lot of people, a lot of English, American Western people's introduction to him was either through Oldboy or through Stoker, most likely, because that's an English language film. And then also a British TV series that came out after The Handmaiden called The Little Drummer Girl. This was back in 2018. Now, I haven't seen this. It was a limited series.
Forgot about that. Did you see Thirst?
I haven't seen Thirst.
Thirst is pretty good. Yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah, every movie I've seen from him, I've really enjoyed. So I'm certainly a fan. I'm a fan of South Korean filmmaking in general.
Oh, well, sure. I mean, but I feel like the only one that didn't quite match my expectations was maybe Stoker, which I liked, but I feel like it didn't reach the same heights for me personally.
Sure. I feel like I liked it too. It did feel a little bit like not quite him in his strongest mode.
Right.
To me.
I think that was more of a script thing. I don't know. It just didn't quite. It didn't hit the same buttons for me. I feel like that some of his other better films have. But I know a lot of people love that movie, and I do like it. I enjoyed it, but I think that's the one that's probably didn't sit with me the best. But I'm curious to rewatch it at some point.
Yeah, I'm curious to rewatch the Vengeance trilogy. I've only seen those movies once, and it's one of my favorite trilogies. And I would, I'd love to revisit it because that was my introduction to him as a filmmaker, and certainly I think that's he's one of the quintessential modern filmmakers. I think if you are becoming a cinemaholic, a cinephile, somebody who is sort of discovering, maybe you've gone through the classics a bit, you've gotten to know some of the OG filmmakers, and you want to see, all right, what's the cutting edge right now? Who are some of the filmmakers who were making the best at this current moment? I think that trilogy back in the 2000s is a wonderful sort of gateway into Eastern cinema in general, in my opinion. But yeah, that said, it has been 6 years. He's been gone for 6 years in terms of feature filmmaking, and I think it's cool because we have seen a lot of exciting cinema come out of South Korea's film industry since then. Burning being one of my personal favorites from Lee Chang-dong, but also most notably Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, which won Best Picture just 2 years ago. So Decision to Leave is coming at an interesting time. It arrived at the Cannes Film Festival just this past summer. It had a lot of buzz, high expectations from lots of people in the film-loving world, myself absolutely included. And I gotta say though, I was personally taken aback when I heard that this was being acquired or distributed by Mubi. That's MUBI. That a wonderful streaming service. I think Mubi is really great, but my understanding is, and maybe I'm totally off base here, I don't think that they have the best track record, or they're considered like a major award season player. And I thought this movie would be like one of those. Like it was going to be something that was really going to dominate some of the, awards conversation. But after this hit Cannes, I think that it's been talked about and people are enjoying it, and they're, people are liking it. But sure. I got the sense that this is going to get like a quieter release than it probably deserves, considering, the filmmaker.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, because
I don't know if it's true either. That's just the vibe that I'm getting. I don't know if it's for sure.
I mean, I'll agree in the sense that I was a little concerned when they picked up, not because I don't trust them, but because I was like, is this going to be, a primarily streaming release in the same way that like Apple movies don't really get wide theatrical releases, and they just kind of go on to their service shortly after they get like a limited run, or even most recently with Netflix. I feel like a lot of the Netflix movies of late have not been getting a theatrical rollout. There's going to be exceptions, of course, like Glass Onion's going to get a week in theaters and stuff, but like Wendell and Wild, as I mentioned earlier, that didn't really play in theaters near me. Blonde, I wanted to see in theaters, that didn't play near me. So I was worried about that with Decision to Leave and with Mubi taking over. But it seems like they're giving it, I mean, at least around me, a pretty sizable theatrical release. And it seems like they are pushing it as far as like their big award contenders. So I don't know. I mean, they might drop the ball. They may not be able to get it the recognition it deserves, but it's too early to say for sure.
Yeah, you're exactly right that it's too early. And, it's playing at a few theaters in the Bay Area, not a ton, which is a little worrying to me, but not extremely. I mean, I think that this has the potential to be another Coda, which would be really great. Even if it doesn't go all the way, and I'm not saying that this is my favorite movie of the year or anything, or that I think this should be Best Picture, but we'll certainly discuss the movie itself in a moment. But I do think that this could be like a Coda, moment for Mubi to sort of like break into the game, sort of, as it were.
I would say
it could be a big opportunity for them.
Yeah, I would say it's better than Coda, personally, but I like Coda fine. It's one of those things where it is definitely a film that got soured by winning Best Picture.
No, you're totally yeah. This is a different level. This is like this is it's interesting because Coda is that kind of like award season movie in the vein of like 4-quadrant Oscar bait kind of thing. This is definitely like something different. This is definitely a cinephile movie, which I'm sure a lot of people listening will be like, oh, does that mean it's boring? And it's like, no. But certainly it is a more challenging film in a lot of respects. But that said, I think this is one of those movies that the critical groups are gonna swoon over. Like it's gonna probably get a lot of nominations with CCA and stuff like that. But I think that's good because like I really like the Criterion Channel, and I want Mubi to be successful, because if something happened to Criterion Channel, we'd have Mubi. There aren't a lot of like high profile streaming services dedicated to showcasing like, a broader term for independent cinema, I guess, would be like film festival films. You know what I mean? So I hope that Mubi continues to grow and thrive, because I think it's a very important streaming service. Onto the film itself. Decision to Leave is a neo-noir romantic mystery thriller. And it stars Park Hae-il as a hard-boiled police detective with insomnia who develops an unsettling attraction to the prime suspect in a murder investigation, a woman named So-rae, played by Tong Wei. She is the widow to a man who has this mysterious death that the detective is quite suspicious of. And this is definitely one of those movies where, if you watch The Handmaiden before this, you might go into it expecting another sort of like, oh, okay, so is this going to be another like highly erotic sort of thriller, sort of having a lot of black humor in terms of how it's playing with gender and queerness and things like that. This is very different from Handmaiden. It's coded very differently. It's much more akin to like classic noir. It's, it has a lot of double indemnity in it. It has,
absolutely, yeah.
This is like Raymond Chandler, it feels in a similar way to how The Handmaiden was, adapting from Fingersmith. This feels like it's adapting from Big Chill, Maltese Falcon, and all of those.
Sure.
But for the good, because I think that Chen Wook's, styles of filmmaker translates super well to those kinds of movies. So what did you think of Decision to Leave?
I mean, I was going to say to that, like, I know some reviews when I was following the coverage at the Cannes Film Festival, they were saying like it's Hitchcockian. And I was kind of nervous because like it's like one of those terms like Spielbergian where it's just like, yeah, like he's like one of the most famous filmmakers ever to do this. Yeah. So it's like, is that kind of like a broad blanketed statement, or is that like a way to kind of westernize this film? And I will say, I think that the sentiment behind it is somewhat true in the sense like there is a lot of vertigo to this film. Like it is kind of playing to like what you said, like this sort of like code era noir, like femme fatale sort of film, but it's doing it in a very contemporary modern way. Like the use of technology, especially the use of phones and digital communication, is deeply embedded into the film. But it's fascinating for me to see how Park Chan-wook is trying to kind of take that very contemporary style and kind of play against what we expect from him in terms of violence and sexuality, and make a film that's in a weird way almost sort of like chaste about the romanticism. Like there's something very sort of like, it's not like it's like wholesome because it is a story about murder. There is a decent bit of violence. I was going to say,
it's like you see pretty grisly stuff. It's just that you don't see the eroticism. You don't see like explicit, like there's no nudity, in this movie, for example.
Right. And I think to me, that's fascinating for him. Like it suggests a more kind of thoughtful, mature kind of film. Not that his other films weren't thoughtful and mature in their own ways, of course, but it shows that he's trying to apply a certain type of restraint that I feel like we haven't particularly seen from him. I mean, there are exceptions in the sense that, like, I haven't seen I'm a Cyborg, but that's okay. But I know that was his attempt after, like, Lady Vengeance, after that Vengeance trilogy, to kind of do something a little bit daffier, a little bit, kind of more lighthearted. I think that is just a direct rom-com. And it feels like, coming off of Stoker and The Handmaiden and, Little Drummer Girl, which, I think it was also pretty in line with some of his earlier films from what I had seen. I haven't watched that show, of course. But, it just sounds like he's kind of trying to do something in that vein where it's like a little bit more restrained, thoughtfully kind of tackling this kind of old-fashioned story, but giving it a modern, very today timely type of storytelling style. Very quick editing, very much trying to find a cinematic way to portray this sort of text-based relationship in a way that I found very engaging and entertaining. But also, like I said, it is kind of challenging in some respects. It is. I don't want to use this word because it sounds negative, but it does sound like it's intentionally sort of like convoluted at times, like in the way that's kind of like trying to expand upon the story and kind of challenge the expectations in a way that is meant to kind of mirror the insomnia mindset of the main character and kind of follow with him, like how things aren't really connecting together and how things aren't always as they seem. And I just find it to be a really fascinating, as I said, engaging film. I don't know if I'd put it on par with some of his earlier films, but I certainly think this is another just very well crafted noir thriller story from, a top notch director.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of those movies where I have to see it again because I was a little bit overloaded by all the symbolic storytelling he's trying to do. I think that this is one of those movies where I like the storytelling a lot more than the story. The story, I think, is compelling to an extent, but it's certainly, like we said, it's borrowing so much from this sort of really well-trodden, anti-hero or femme fatale archetype that's been done so much. And I think the fact that, there isn't a lot of explicit sexuality in this does speak to that's the character. I think the restraint you're talking about is the restraint that this character has, and I think that it is consistent within the framework of the actual story. That said, as much as I respect the movie in that sense for doing something a bit different and not really having a man who is just completely beholden to his passions, who's doing, because a lot of these movies, a lot of these romantic thrillers, they do have very transparent, formulas where you can really see, okay, this is going to be the part of the movie where this happens and he's going to make this mistake and then this person's going to do this betrayal. And I think he does avoid a lot of that because he crafts the character so well. But I think that there's something here in the writing that is a bit lacking compared to the direction. The direction and the editing are so top-notch in this that it's actually visibly lopsided in terms of how I think the writing isn't always quite there. I mentioned that Handmaiden has a lot of really great black humor. I think a lot of people will watch this and find it like funny at times, and I thought it was funny too, but I think that there is just a strange sort of off-putting balance of all of these sort of touch points that might be a plus for some people who might kind of like that sort of like everything feels a little off kilter in this movie. It does kind of speak to the atmosphere of it. And for me, I kind of tuned out of the story at a certain point because I feel like I felt like we got it. You know, I was like, there's not much else you can do. The rising action isn't really matching how great the filmmaking is here. And to what you were saying, I think that the way that Insomnia is portrayed here in particular is so compelling to me. And I also think that the chemistry between the leads and how that just constantly keeps us guessing, constantly keeps us wondering about the motivations of certain characters. There's a lot done here with language barriers because the widow is Chinese, a Chinese immigrant, and so her Korean isn't super good. And she uses technology to sort of translate Korean so she can keep up. And there's certain words, you know, that get lost in translation. There's a lot of really great stuff there. Again, it's the direction. It's a lot of like how the script is translated that I think is good. Less so the script itself, if that makes sense. And that said, I think that for a movie with this much technology, this much smartphone use and texting, it feels really timeless. We haven't talked about Tar together yet, but that was one of my main, you know, good things about Tar. Like my main positives about that movie is that the way that it's having a conversation about technology feels very timeless in a way that it's hard to wrap your head around, you know, when we're in the current age. So it's like, it's hard to do that, honestly, and for things to still feel authentic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the idea to me of doing this sort of this character type of mystery in a modern lens is just kind of fascinating in that, like, we are in this weird, what I think has been called kind of like post-truth era, where like we have, through the access to the internet, seemingly direct access to all sorts of information. But now we're kind of in this area where it's like, well, we don't know who we can trust, who we can really directly, you know, connect with. And I feel like this movie really taps into that in a really sort of thoughtful and engaging way. But
yeah, it taps into the anxiety of that.
Yeah, anxiety,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, above all that, I mean, I do think, yeah, like you said, formally, it's more about what Park Chan-wook is doing as a director. When I think about what I like about this movie, I'm really like talking about the technical stuff. I'm talking about like what he's able to achieve with the camera work, what he's able to achieve with pacing, with the direction, and with the editing. I'm not as much thinking about like the story. I even went so far as to say it was kind of convoluted, but I think beyond that, what really connects to me is just that central lead female performance from, I believe her name is Tang Wei.
I pronounce it Tong Wei. I'm not sure if that's right, but yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah, I thought her performance in this is just incredible. I mean, just the nuance that she's able to capture, this sense of, like you said, it is that femme fatale personality where you can't get a full read on her, but there is something that's very present, very vulnerable about her. Someone that, you know, she's not really like lying, but there's something that she's like trying, like she's obviously, like the language barrier you're mentioning, there is stuff that she's directly or indirectly kind of withholding, but there is a lot here emotionally that she feels like she's kind of learning over time, but there is that ambiguity, the sense that she knows all this information, but also doesn't really know it. I just think that's such a complex performance to give, and I think she does it so richly and beautifully and with a great deal, like I said, of nuance. I think, to me, even when I wasn't always engaged or connected to the story, because we didn't really mention, without giving too much away, that there's kind of like a time lapse that happens, and I feel like it's a little bumpy as far as like kind of getting to that point.
You mean like a time jump?
Sorry, yeah, a time jump. And I feel like there's like a moment where like she's kind of absent from the story that maybe I was like the least connected with, because like I feel like her character. I can
speak to that though.
Okay.
Yeah, because that speaks to like your point earlier about the energy of this character.
Yes.
And like how you know, what is the word? Stantalizing. There's a word for it. Scintillating? It's something.
Sensual?
Well,
I don't know.
No, it's a little bit more. Well, you know, it directly ties to a line where she's discussing something with him, and not to give away the full text of the scene. Right. She sort of suggests to him that, you know, when he saw her, you know, despite his stoic nature, that's when he felt alive again. And that was a moment where I connected so much with the film in that sense, where I was like, I felt alive again when these two characters were interacting after so much time apart. So I think that there is this sort of like knowingness that the director has of like, you know, that when like the characters are together on screen, you're really going to pay close attention because I genuinely, that's where the life of the film is. Whenever we're with other characters and like the bumbling sidekicks, you know, like this like junior detective, that it's fun stuff, but it never for me was like fully driving the plot forward in as meaningful a way.
I do agree that like I think he's better when it comes to comedy in his films when they have a little bit more of an edge, and that seemed to be kind of more slapsticky in a way that I don't know. For me, at least, I didn't really find those scenes to be particularly funny. I wasn't as connected to the comedy in this one as I think I've been with other Park Chan-wook films.
It's definitely more dry, like it's a drier humor than I think he's done.
Somewhat. There's like a big chase scene that's very kind of not broad, but it's like played out in a very kind of wacky sort of way. I wouldn't say that scene. You could
do like the Benny Hill music to it, maybe.
And then there's like a scene involving turtles, without giving too much away. That's kind of also very sort of broad, comedically, in a sort of like very visual, wacky way. I don't know. I don't know if I fully agree, but I think there is a lot verbally, I guess, what you're saying that might be a little bit lost for a Western audience as far as some of the subtler nuances of the comedy here.
Yeah, mileage will probably vary in that sense. But yeah, I think that this is definitely, I don't think we can say enough about how a lot of people will probably watch this movie and, like I said before, feel a little bit like, what exactly am I supposed to get out of this? And I definitely, this is definitely one of the toughest endings to a movie I've seen this year, where, you know, again, I keep comparing it to Tar because that was the last like high level, you know, movie I saw, I guess, but, or one of them. And I think like Tar left me smiling. Tar left me sort of being like, that was tough, but I really feel satisfied by the experience. In this, I felt way more like I do in real life, where I feel like everything is terrible. You know, there's a lot in this movie about depression. There's really challenging stuff here about how that ties into how it manifests itself physically. You know, we've been talking a little bit, you know, on Mad Men Men, our Mad Men podcast, about the way that Betty Draper, that character, you know, because she can't process her depression through words, it comes out physically through her hands, always fidgeting. And there's a lot of that in this movie, and it's certainly powerful stuff to watch. But if one chief criticism I have in terms of where the characters come in on this, I could not connect really with what he was trying to do with the wife character, the detective's wife, who I'll have to look up her name, but I just think the writing for the character, not the performance, but the writing just really didn't stick out for me. And I really think that there was just something very vacuous about the character. It was a little bit too archetypal, but did you have a similar or opposing thought to that? Oh, and it's Lee Jong-hyun.
Yeah. Well, I did want to kind of talk about the ending a little bit, but first, what were you asking about more directly before I jump?
The wife?
Yeah, the wife. I don't know. I mean, I thought her character, as far as like how she plays a role into his sexuality, because there's, for a film like this that's so directly sort of chaste as far as like the relationship or the romance of it, I did appreciate that there was something very sexual about their relationship, in the sense that like it's the direct opposite of what's going on, where it's like he's obsessively sort of compelled by this woman, and like it kind of mirrors his draw for like what he loves about his job and sort of what kind of drives him as a person. Then at home, like he gets like that sex, but it's almost sort of empty. Like he's like, even that one sex scene they have, like he's just not really present with her. It's just sort of very physical.
He's staring at, you know, a sort of like something on the television. It's because he can only sort of process his pleasure through, you know, fiction and through like other things instead of like the here and now.
Right.
You're right. He's sort of like connecting his job to like what honestly arouses him, turns him on.
It's all sort of mental in a way. It's like this like kind of cat and chase thing, a cat and mouse chase. But yeah, it's kind of like the thrill of the hunt in a weird way. The fact that he can't really understand this other woman, but yeah, he also feels drawn to her, feels like they're sort of paralleling each other in a weird way. I just find that so fascinating. And then also just like the idea of like kind of looking in on somebody is so integral to the film. Like there's that one shot, and I had to like look up how they even did it, because I really still don't even know, but it's a one shot when they're in the investigation, and it's like them and then the mirror shot of them, like through the stained glass mirror, and she's like in focus. I forget if it's like she's out of focus in the forefront, but in focus in the mirror, and he's out of focus in the mirror, but in focus in
it's magical
the forefront. And it's just like, I mean, like that's just the work of an incredible filmmaker. I mean, and just the way that he's able, and there's this constant conversation about like film and digital and like what's better, what's worse. They're all tools, and really, if you can use digital photography to kind of do something like that and tell so much with just an image in a way, I just think that stuff is amazing. But yeah,
the cinematographer, by the way, to point out, is Kim Ji-young, who has done a lot of Korean films.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a different cinematographer than his previous films. I forget what's that guy's name, but he's been doing a lot of Hollywood movies. Like he did Uncharted this year, and he did it.
He did. Kim Ji-young did.
Yeah, he did Uncharted. I remember this because I was like, "What are you doing here? Why are you not making the new Park Chan-wook movie?"
I'll have to look that up. That doesn't sound right to me.
Is that not right? Or
are you sure?
Let me double check.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now because my understanding is you're thinking of Chung. Oh yeah, you're thinking of Chung Hoon Chung.
Yeah, who collaborates with Park Chan-wook.
No, I thought you were talking about the cinematographer for this movie, Kim Ji-young.
No. I mean Park Chan-wook's normal.
Okay, that's why.
Cinematographer.
Yes. Oh, okay.
He wasn't able to do this movie because he's been doing a lot of Hollywood productions. Like he did.
Okay.
Zombieland 2. He did like Last Night in Soho. I think he was involved with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he did Uncharted this year. And it's just like fascinating.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were talking about the cinematographer for this movie. I was like, wait, no, no, different.
No, but that's his regular. I think he's like shot most of Park Chan-wook's movies.
Yes, and so he has a new cinematographer with him here, who I think also does a terrific job with the camera. And I don't know what people might know him, but he's done a lot of like Korean films as well.
Yeah, I mean the cinematography in this is also very good. I'm just saying that, like, I was just kind of surprised that they didn't collaborate again.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a question for you though.
Sure.
Yeah, because we talked a lot. Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say I did want to talk about the ending at some point. That was what I was trying to lead to, but in vague terms. But I want to answer your question first.
Oh no, I mean, I just wanted to sort of. I think people have been arguing about how romantic this movie is, and I think that it is extremely romantic, extremely. And I know that, like, because I think some people look at romance as sort of like, is it romance if it's all longing? And I was curious what you thought about that, because for me, there's this whole mode of like how you feel shattered by a person. And I think that to me it's sort of like, how could I compare it? It's sort of like how the suggestion of something, like what you imagine it and your expectation, is much more fulfilling and understandable than actually seeing it just happen. Right? Like that's kind of what that's to me what makes it romantic. But I don't think everybody will agree. I think some people will watch this and be disappointed by what doesn't happen instead of what does.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're looking at this like romantic in the sense of like it's erotic or like stimulating, I don't think it's quite the same type of romantic. But I agree with you. I thought it to be a very sort of, it's melancholic, but it is a very sort of romantic film. And I think that's certainly true of the ending, which there is, I think you were mentioning this, and I don't want to give away what happens, but there is this sort of ambiguity about it in a way that felt sort of purposeful, in a way that I feel like a lot of endings of late, when they try to go for this sort of abstract ending that reflects the mindset of the characters, it feels cheap in a way that like they're just going for ambiguity because they don't quite know how to end it. Like it's just more of like here's how we need to wrap this up. This feels very purposeful in its ambiguity. Like I think Park Chan-wook knows what he wants to say with the ending, but it's left a little bit open for interpretation with the audience. And it's so fascinating to me, without spoiling this movie, to compare this to the ending of Triangle of Sadness, where that might very well be true with Ruben Östlund's ending, but to me that ending was a lot more unsatisfying in its ambiguity, in the sense that I felt like I walked away from that not really getting a conclusive ending, but more just kind of like a shoulder shrug of just like, yeah, that's kind of it. You can kind of make up what you want as far as like these images we spewed together, but it didn't feel like satisfying and as enriched in a way that like this like they're so metaphoric. The ending of this is so metaphoric and so visually stimulating, and it leaves a lot of room for open discussion.
Haunting.
And haunting, yeah. And
Yeah.
I love that. That's the ambiguity of it, is the lack of closure, which represents the mindset of the character and this sort of like his desire to search. And I think that is done tremendously, and I think that adds that romanticism that you're talking about. But yeah, to me, it was refreshing to see an ending like this after other films of late that I've seen that have gone for something sort of ambiguous in the same way, but in a way that felt much less satisfying.
Yeah. If there's one thing that I could say this movie is about, that it is about in a very important way, or that it really nails, it's about the desperation of loneliness. And, loneliness makes people do wild and unsettling things. And I think that that's sort of the construction of this. I think that's what Chan-wook's getting at when he, formed such a taboo sort of dynamic between characters who really should have no business, being together in any sort of, capacity like this, but, proving out how sometimes, you can't resist like that sort of attraction when you're in the state that I think both of these characters are in, and how just damaging that is. And I like that he isn't glorifying it at all. He is really getting to the heart of like how this stuff happens in a psychological way that I thought was definitely audacious. It's not an easy thing to do. And I think it's something that like a lot of media just sort of diminishes and downplays how toxic these sorts of dynamics can be.
Yeah.
Not this. So
Right.
that's the thing I probably appreciate the most about it, aside from how incredibly well crafted it is.
Yeah.
My favorite editing in a movie this year, probably.
Sure.
Because I love how scenes transition from each other, how you're able to know when you're going back in time or forward in time or neither, just by like little cues. I just never felt lost or confused, even though sometimes I felt like I probably should have been, if that makes sense. And
Well,
so
yeah.
I'm a big fan.
I was gonna say it all kind of like bleeds together in certain scene by scenes in a way that like kind of it's supposed to make you feel a little disoriented, but not in the sense of like,
Yeah.
you feel like you're like the story is like getting ahead of Park Chan-wook or something like that. Like it feels like it's deliberately sort of off the rails in a weird way, in a way that I feel like properly communicates the headspace of the character, but doesn't feel like the story is getting like lost in the shuffle, which is a very, very hard thing to pull off both visually and storytelling wise. And I think that's just a credit to Park Chan-wook here.
Yeah. I like when movies are unafraid to demand your attention and to really, demand a lot from you in general. Be like, you really got to pay attention with this movie to really get get everything out of it. And I don't think it's probably really hard to get everything out of this movie on the first watch, is my sense. And so I get the idea, I get the vibe that this is one of the, more rewarding movies to revisit if that's what you intend to do. If you end up liking this probably as much as I did, and I hope you did, I thought it was quite good. So
Yeah.
it was selected for Best International for South Korea. So yeah, we could see a little bit more conversation about it in the coming future.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to add is just that the sense of like, I feel like this movie, what I also find kind of fascinating is that it tackles like a new way of sort of like, I guess the word would be like voyeurism in a weird way. It's like this kind of like looking in, but like not like, I feel like a lot of American films, when they do this, they kind of look at it more from like a like Peeping Tom scenario, which I just watched recently upon your recommendation. Like with that, it's something a little bit more kind of like perverted and kind of more like, like more kind of like erotic, I guess. And like this film, it's a little bit more kind of just like trying to understand a person and using like voyeurism to like illicitly sort of look in a sort of fascinating way. And I just find that such an intriguing way to kind of tackle this noir kind of story. And I think that's where people are comparing it to like Hitchcock, obviously like Rear Window, and then like with like Brian De Palma and certain filmmakers in America do similar things. And I think that's where the comparisons are warranted. But I think what Park Chan-wook is doing is a little bit more kind of complex than maybe some of those comparisons are letting on.
I'm really glad you mentioned Peeping Tom and voyeurism in general, because I'm not confident enough. I'd have to see the movie again, but I did sort of get the sense that he is saying something about watching other people in terms of like watching movies. And I think he's trying to be very specific about photography and just the way that we observe people and we think we know them. I think he's doing something interesting there that I think will, for me at least, require a little bit further contemplation. And I'm very happy for that. I like when movies don't just hand me everything. You really got to work for it with this one. And I think though, if you do, you get what you work for. That's for sure.
I just I want to make sure I mention that because I think we were alluding to it, but I didn't really get to say that more explicitly. So I just wanted to kind of get that before we wrapped up.
Yeah, I guess on that note, then we can play the Rotten Tomatoes game, and this is definitely a movie where the more I talk about it and think about it, the more I just want to see it again. So I think it's going to be available on Mubi if it isn't already.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. And you're lucky because you got a screener of it. I saw. I
did get a screener, and you were saying like you thought it was a shame I didn't see it in theaters, and I do. I'd like to, but I'd have to go kind of far to go see it in a theater. So, but hopefully one day I'll be able to get that big screen experience if the opportunity arises.
Yeah, I will plug that it's playing in the Pittsburgh area at the Harris Theater, which is where I work. So I was fortunate enough to see it at my place of employment.
All right. Well, I'll tell any of our listeners here in the Bay Area. I know there are a bunch of you. It's playing at the Alamo Draft House in San Francisco with Mission. It's also playing at the Kabuki 8 and the Aquarius Theater if you're in Palo Alto. And I know it's also playing in San Jose, a couple places in San Jose, but not my favorite theaters, so I'm not going to plug them. For me, if I want to see this at the Alamo, I mean, I think that would for me be ideal. So. That is Decision to Leave. Let's play the Rotten Tomatoes game here. We have 162 reviews counted, and certainly a lot of critics have checked this out at this point. What do you think, Mr. Will Ashton, is the Rotten Tomatoes score?
I think it's high. I'm going to say 94%.
Spot on. 94% came out swinging. Decision to Leave an impact. Okay. What about audience score? We have 100 plus ratings. What do you think?
86%.
A little bit higher, but you're on the right track. 90%.
Okay, 90.
So just a little bit lower than the critic score, which I guess makes sense. Long movie, so certainly a tougher one to make everybody happy.
I was gonna say
we don't have enough.
It's 138 minutes, right? 2.5 hours, basically.
Yeah, I had 2 hour 18.
Yeah.
On the timer. So
with trailers, that's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, with trailers, that's 2.5, maybe more. So, all right, we don't have a cinema score, so let's look at Letterboxd. This is a Letterboxd darling because it has 62,000 watches. That's more than Black Adam did last week. Just kind of funny to me. I mean, it's been out longer, or people have had more opportunities to see it. But
yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, this has come out in a few countries before it came out to the U.S., right?
That's true. It's been kind of rolling out to at a lot of film festivals, not just Cannes. So it's definitely getting a push. But we have 62,000 watches. Will, what do you think the average rating is on Letterboxd right now?
4.2.
That's a little bit lower, 3.9. And I took a look, and I'm seeing some people say, honestly, it was a little flat for me. Some people are just not totally connecting with it, but other people I'm seeing really, really coming out for this movie, really enjoying it. I'm kind of looking right now, and the only friend of the show I see on my Letterboxd here saw it is Kimber Myers. She gave it 4.5 stars. From Kimber Myers, that is quite high. So happy to see that.
Good deal.
And that'll do it for our show.
Sure.
We still need to figure out what we're talking about next week besides pizza. We'll see.
Yeah, that'll come up some way or another, I'm sure.
I'm assuming you don't want to talk about Enola Holmes 2?
Does that come out this week?
That comes out on Netflix on November 4th. So, yeah, that is this week.
Yeah, I
probably won't watch it because I'm still kind of bitter about Henry Cavill moving on over to, doing another Superman movie instead of another season of The Witcher. No thanks. Come back.
I mean, I don't know. I remember not really caring for Enola Holmes. I know Abby Ochesi, she was on the show when we reviewed the first one. She was a big fan. Maybe we were in the I don't think you were crazy about it either, right? You were kind of so-so on that first one.
I was pretty so on it. Books editor at the Young Folks, Abby Petrie, even told me, she was like, yeah, I listened to your review because we were talking about doing some coverage for it because it's a books thing and everything, books and movies. And she was just like, yeah, I heard you, Will, talk about it. You weren't the biggest fan. I was like, I'll have to re-listen to that. I do remember our Enola Holmes sketch that we did at the beginning. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, boy.
Wilston.
I forgot all
That's
about
a good
that
one.
I forgot about that one. Oh, boy.
Yeah, maybe we'll play that on the show next week for people who forgot or never got to catch it. 2020 was a weird year.
That was a weird year.
We were on it.
Very, very weird year. What else is coming up?
coming out this week.
Yeah.
I think Causeway is supposed to be hitting some theaters. We've talked about most of this stuff.
I wonder if I might have a screener for that. Maybe I actually get Apple screener, so I might maybe have an access to that one. I don't know.
I don't know for sure because I know that that's Apple, but it's also I think it's one of the Apple ones where they're doing a theatrical.
Well,
because it's supposed to hit limited, I think, but it might hit streaming too. I don't want to say that for sure, but I think it'll be on Apple TV this weekend.
I don't know. I thought I got like a screener for like Tragedy Macbeth, which I think was also an A24 Apple collaboration.
Okay.
So if I didn't know that until after I'd seen it in theaters, which I was planning to see that movie in theaters anyway, so not a big deal, obviously. But
I don't know if I'll be able to. But
are you planning to see Causeway?
Yeah, I will for sure be seeing it. But I mean, I got to be straight up with you, Will Ashton, 100%. I want you to watch Tar. Okay. I want you to watch Banshees of Inisherin, and I forget everything else. Nothing else matters.
Nothing else matters. That's not true, but I mean, those two are certainly the two probably most interested to see, to be honest. So
yeah,
maybe I'll make it work.
No shortage of choices for everybody in general. Everybody listening, if you're ready for Oscar season, you're ready to start watching some new stuff. There's plenty to choose from, especially on Netflix. Netflix is definitely blitzing a lot of movies at the moment. So
yeah, Wendell and Wild, go watch it. It's a good film. Have fun.
Yeah, I will almost certainly be watching that one as soon as I can. So thank you, though, everybody, for listening. We'll see you all on the next one from the Internet California. I'm John Negroni.
And for Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Will Ashton.
See you next time.